Irrational Christians. That's the charge that a philosopher and a writer of the 3rd century made against Christians. He was countered by Origen. Origen, Origen of Alexandria was a very gifted individual. And Ambrose, his patron, the one who paid for the scribes who were recording everything he said, requested that he write this paper to counter what had been written before by Celsus. And there was a hesitancy on the part of Origen to do that, because he starts off in a preface of this book where he starts off and says that Jesus did not respond to his accusers. And I think he saw that as a game changer. Don't be out there chasing after rabbits. Don't be out there always trying to argue with everyone. But anyway, Ambrose was a particular fond person to him because he supported him, basically. And he wrote this very lengthy document called Against Celsus. I have it downloaded. I've got a Kindle version of it, less than $2, and it's about 750 pages long. And it's quite interesting the way it gives you an insight into actually some of the thoughts even the Christians had of the time. He hesitated because Jesus said that he was not going to respond to his accusers. Now, Josh McDowell was a person that I read a lot of when I first came back. And apologetics is a defense of what you believe, but Origen is said to be writing an apologetic paper here, but they're quite different from one another. Josh McDowell's apologetics were taking things like witnesses and talking about that, prophecies, talking about that. In other words, it was evidence that demands a verdict, which was the name of his first book. No relationship to me, Josh McDowell, but anyway, that book, I really wore it out. But this is an apologetic proof with quite a different approach. He takes the document that was written by Celsus, and he step by step, point by point, refutes or amplifies what was written. I love the way he approached it. I think back to myself, when I was first learning, was first studying in depth on apologetics and on any number of things, I was an attack dog. I went after people. I learned how to argue. That's what I was trying to do. Origen didn't do that, and I thought he did a very good job of being very cordial, and he saw him not as one having a character flaw, but one who simply had a difference of opinion. And we can learn a lot from that attitude and from that approach. He said there was no deceitfulness. No deceitfulness. In other words, Celsus believed what he wrote, and that's why he wrote it. And I think that's something we could learn. The people who differ with me have an honest opinion of what they believe, and that's okay. That's fine. Anyway, back to the document we're talking about here, Against Celsus. Celsus' criticism was he was just saying that Christianity is not rational. The irrationality of the faith. Irrational Christians is what my title to this video was. Origen, though, comes back and argues that Christianity has a rational basis and is not contradictory to philosophical thought, drawing parallels and distinctions between Christian teachings and Greek philosophy, especially Platoism. Now, at this point, by the 3rd century, and by the way, this was 248 AD when this document was written. And before I forget to say it, I want to say that, one, we only have the writings of Celsus by what has been recorded by Origen. Otherwise, it would have been lost. And we probably would have lost the document that was written by Origen had it not been for the discovery of a 13th century Greek text that has the entire 750 pages of this, what we're discussing today. Quite a find. But anyway, the rationality of the faith that Origen talks about, I think, spells some idea that he has been influenced by Greek philosophy. And that's been the accusation of Christians for centuries and for decades. Even today, we are influenced by Platoism. Secondly, the wisdom of the Bible. The wisdom of the Bible. Celsus didn't see that way, but Origen came back and he maintains that the Bible has profound wisdom as compared to the pagan documents, the pagan writings, which are really kind of foolishness. And he goes into great depth in his 750 pages to talk about this idea that the Bible produces sound wisdom. Third, we were accused of paganism, the critique of paganism. Origen challenges the nature of a pagan god. And Celsus, of course, he holds to those pagan gods, and he's arguing that they are not, Origen is arguing that they're not true gods, but they're rather evil spirits. And I don't think that would have set real well with Celsus, but I think that Origen is speaking from his heart the truth as he sees it. Their gods are evil spirits. Correcting misrepresentation. Origen addresses specific charges that Celsus made as to the claims of false prophets and the perceived gullibility of Christians. And in his writing, that approach that Origen states, he spells out how they're misrepresenting, Celsus is misrepresenting the way things really are in the Christian faith. And finally, Celsus is misrepresenting, according to Origen, the relationship that the Christians have with Judaism. Origen corrects Celsus and in these misrepresentations, and he talks about the relationship between the Jews and the Christians, arguing that Christianity has superseded Judaism in God's plan. I want to end this video by reading the very end of Against Celsus. It's coming from Origen's own words, and it kind of summarizes, in my mind, why he did what he did. He said, "In 8 books, we have embraced all that we considered it proper to say in reply to that book of Celsus, which he entitled A True Discourse. And now it remains for the readers of his discourse and of my reply to judge which breathes most of the spirit of the true God, of piety toward him, and of that truth which leads men by sound doctrines to the noblest life. You must know, however, that Celsus had promised another treatise as a sequel to this one, in which he engaged to supply practical rules of living to those who felt disposed to embrace his opinions. If then he has not fulfilled his promise of writing a second book, we may well be contented with these 8 books which we have written as an answer to his discourse." There you have it.